All right. Am I clear?
You are clear. What's that in the background? Where you at?
Oh, I'm in our news bunker, as I call it. And it's I can uh, well, when this is all over, I can tell the full story of where we are. But I got to protect our team. I mean, right now Lviv is safe, but if there was an invasion like we've seen in Kharkiv or Mariupol, I got to protect our location in case there are tanks coming down the street to protect our team.
You're hearing sirens late at night. What are the sirens? Is it just somebody's invading the space up there and they're not doing anything yet, or what are they doing?
Yeah, we haven't heard these sirens since Sunday, so it's been a little bit of a lull because since the war started, it was once or twice a day. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, sometimes during the day. Uh, there have not been airstrikes on the city of Lviv like there have been in the rest of the country. There were a few reports from the government that during these air raid alarms, it was because there were Russian saboteurs
Mm-hmm.
on the streets of Lviv, and the military and the police were undertaking operations to round them up. So they put everyone in the shelter. Uh,
To be in that moment, because a lot of Americans don't know what being in a war is all about, and you are in a place where war has broken out. You're there as a journalist, but you're also there as a human being.
Yeah, I mean, I've been here for 2 years in Ukraine. I got stuck here when the pandemic started. The borders closed, and then I decided to stay here, and I began to work with journalists, and now it's clear to me, I was meant to be here for
Mm-hmm.
this moment. And so, yeah, I have lots of friends here, and I've seen how the society how everyone's in war mode. Whatever people did before, everyone has the same job now, which is to get to victory in different ways. For example, my friends who are jazz musicians, there's been no music since the war started. They are all working together to get refugees out into Poland. So everyone is in this absolute mode. And in Lviv, because we haven't been attacked, I mean, there have been Russian agents here. That's a big problem. But because we've not been directly attacked, Lviv is in a mode of preparation. This is the logistics center for the country. The supplies are coming in from Poland, and this city is where people are preparing. And there are increased warnings that we might get hit. I mean, with every speech of Putin, it becomes clear that he sounds maniacal. I mean, he sounds like Hitler. He wants all of Ukraine, and he really seems to hate Ukrainian culture and language. This city is the capital of Ukrainian culture. So there is.
Yeah, it shocks me on the different stories that are coming out of that area, and that is that the Russians are being told that it's the Nazis attacking Russia again, whereas those of Ukraine are going, "What did we do? Come on, what did we do?" But you're not stealing my land.
Yeah, exactly. And it was the Russians, for example, who in Kyiv a few days ago bombed a sacred site where the Nazis killed Jewish people in the Holocaust, which is a very sacred site in Ukraine now. And the Russians bombed that site. Ukraine's a very tolerant country for different races and different religions. I mean, the president is Jewish. So Putin's narrative that he's trying to denazify Ukraine it's ludicrous to us. And somehow it seems that Russian people, they believe this. It's because they haven't had a culture of free speech and free media.
Mm-hmm. Before we go any further, there is a website that people need to go to because you need to raise funds for protection. What is that website, or where can they go to start giving to you?
Yeah, thanks. It's lvivlab.com, LVIVLAB.com. And from there, we welcome donations to help our newsroom, but also our networks of people who are, trying to secure themselves, prepare for defense, and so we can keep an operation to keep sharing information. From that website, Lviv Lab, you can access our Telegram channel, which is right now our primary way to reach people. With Facebook, and we've been getting censored a little bit, but on Telegram, we can reach people directly if they sign up to follow us.
One of the things that I think is very heroic is the way that Elon Musk turned on his satellites so that people could be kept in the news. I mean, you talk about modern day connection around the world.
Yeah, it's great to hear because, on the ground here, this is a very tech-friendly, innovative country from east to west. And Elon, so many people I know here before that think of Elon as a hero. And so he's all the more so now. And I just heard that a lot of those satellite phones and the Starlink are on the way right now as we speak to Ukraine, which will be very essential if, already in the East, there's been problems with the internet. If we do get that problem here, we will need these. Otherwise, we'll have no way to communicate with the outside world and with each other.
Liberia had to deal with Twitter because that's where all the messaging was taken. It seems like ever since then, the first thing that people take down are your social media networks. But we're in a new age where it's bigger than Twitter and bigger than Facebook.
Absolutely. I mean, in Ukraine, for example, the Telegram, which has become more popular in America due to Twitter censorship concerns, Telegram is where people on the ground share information. It's not secure, so anything you put there, the Russians can read. We use Signal for secure messages. But as far as sharing information with the public and among groups of people in Ukraine, Telegram has been the best source of videos of, Russian soldiers being captured, of civilians being attacked. That has been the best news source, really, Telegram.
How are people staying motivated? Is there a source of motivation, or is it, this is SYA?
Well, I think, when you look at, I'm sure a lot of Americans have seen the videos of captured Russians who they're sort of surprised. They're surprised they were sent to kill Ukrainians. Their motivation is more difficult, but Ukrainians the motivation is, this is their existence. This is their culture. This is their land. They have nowhere else to go, the place they love. And the freedom that they won in 2014 by standing in the streets during the Revolution of Dignity, that came at a high price. And so the motivation is to defend themselves. So it is high, but I will say, I've spoken with people in Kharkiv, a city of 1.4 million people, 20 miles from Russia. They have experienced almost incessant shelling since this began on the 24th of February. And when I talk to them, their spirits are harmed. I mean, that does take a toll on your soul. And that was one of the most innovative, optimistic cities I've ever visited. And now when I talk to those people, I can hear in their voice the sad emotions. But I would say the rest, the whole country sort of comes together to, like here in the West, I think they have the motivation for the rest of the country to keep going. And Errol, I mean, you see, for example, yesterday in Mariupol on the Sea of Azov, the Russians bombed a children's hospital.
Yep.
And, that actually increases the motivation to win. And a senior official in Zelensky's government said after that, he said, the time for flowers is over. And what he meant is Ukrainians have been treating Russian prisoners of war very nicely. And he said, after this, no more.
Wow.
And so the motivation is fierce now.
To be in a country with a leader that is stepping up. And I mean, most people did not even know this man even existed until this moment. And he's showing leadership like no other nation around the world.
Yeah, and I think, he's trying to show the world that it's not just Ukraine. And if Ukraine were to fall, who's next? And, I think people in Sweden and Finland realize this. They have borders with Russia. But he's trying to wake up the world. And I would say, here in Lviv, in the West, it's not Zelensky country. He was not very popular until the war. And now he's, I would say, universally adored. And his actions, the fact that he's staying in Kyiv, that he walks the streets, it gives people motivation and inspiration at the individual level throughout the country.
Well, even his wife is stepping up, and she's got a voice as well, which I think sends a signal around the world that women have a place in history.
Yeah, and we've seen so many photos and videos of Ukrainian women in the military, and even the famous one of the Ukrainian grandmother training with the gun. But it's here, even though some women have evacuated with their children, the general desire of men and women is to stay here and fight and defend the country. And so certainly, I think the Zelensky family provides a great model for that.
Well, we're seeing pictures of women in Poland, and one of the things that is so inspiring is that the way that the photos are saying we are feeding our children, but at the same time we're educating our children, and I think that is so important in this modern age, is that we cannot hide behind a fake news story.
Yeah, well, and I see, and this is, look, everything that Putin has said, he's tried to control the narrative, and I think he's failing to do it. But at the beginning, the first 24 hours of the war, I think most people thought Ukraine was just going to collapse, because Putin sort of projected this image of strength and made Ukraine look very weak. And it was the first 24 hours, there was silence in the European capitals. There was silence really in Washington. I think they were saying, okay, which way is this going to go? And the Ukrainian people, sort of men, women, and children have risen up in a way that has inspired the world. And even the ones who are abroad. I was talking with people at a tech company, and all the men have stayed, and the women are continue to work from countries in Europe, so they can keep making money to survive. And so everyone is collaborating in every way they possibly can.
They say that the limericks of Ireland, as well as the poetry of Central America, are the way that people got the word out. Are people communicating in a newer language in saying, okay, this is the situation out here in this war zone?
Yeah, and I like the Irish connection because I do see a lot of parallels between the centuries of Irish oppression and what Ukrainians face as an Irishman myself. I would see, before the war, I heard for years about Ukrainian civil society, which it's not NGOs and institutions. It's the people connecting and talking with each other. And this is what they did in 2014 with their revolution that ousted the pro-Moscow regime. And now I see the magic of that civil society unleashed. And so it's rapid communication on the Signal app of, hey, I got someone that needs, some bulletproof vest. I got someone that needs some money to pay for medical supplies. And since the war began, all of these little connections among people have been sort of in a feverish pace. So they're not writing limericks; they're writing sort of direct action requests from everyone knows. And really, you see genuine community. Yeah. That's how they're going to win this, I believe.
You talk about the money. Let's hit that website again. Where can people go?
Yeah, please go to lvivlab.com, LVIVLAB.com. There's a Bitcoin portal and also a PayPal option.
Are you getting word from around the world? I mean, because like you said, you've built this news network, and really it started during a crisis, a pandemic, and all of a sudden you're in the center of all of this. Is word from the world reaching you, or is it prefabricated?
I mean, we've been able to speak with a few television and radio networks in the States to share what's happening here. I will say, Arrow, when this began, the first day or two of this, I was on a couple of channels and I was saying, hey, this is not going to be, over in a day, because I've been here for 2 years. I understand the capabilities here. And then I didn't get so many invitations to come back after 2 days. And then last week, a radio station called me that I had previously been on. And on the air, the host said, Joe, we thought you were crazy the first day of the war, and we weren't going to have you back. And then we realized, wait a second, Ukrainians started to push back in a way that surprised the world. And so, yeah, that's why I think, the media needs to be very careful at, really always taking a breath and asking questions. And this has been the problem, I think, with media for so long, is sort of the breathlessness. And in a way, they got swept up by Putin's propaganda. Because they didn't take the time to say, hey, how well do we know this country? Maybe it does have a chance to push back.
And isn't it odd that it's taken this situation between Russia and Ukraine to unite people around the world? Because it seems like everybody was going in their own direction.
Yeah, that's a perspective it'd be good to hear more of from people on the outside, because I've been focused so much on here, but, you see the rallies around the world. And I have friends who are bartenders near the Arctic Circle in Sweden who are having fundraisers to get us support here. And where you really see the impact is the people that come here, the volunteers that come here from the United States, from Australia, to fight or for humanitarian efforts. That's where you really see that people are, whatever their governments might or might not be doing, individual people are moved by this and want to come here because they see what's at stake. They see this idea of freedom is at stake. Can people govern themselves without interference from the outside?
The fear. Do you feel any of that at all?
I would say that the first day, a bunch of friends gathered. They came to our newsroom, and it was a gut punch that day, and there was some sadness, and we didn't. Also, hearing the international headlines, you imagine Russians at your door and having to fight them. So that first day, I would say there was some fear and some a little bit of depression amongst a lot of people, but people got a good night's rest, and I think everyone bucks each other up here. And so no, I mean, for example, we got to prepare Molotov cocktails to protect our newsroom. Okay, we'll have to do it. And that's Yeah, that there hasn't been time to think much about that. If I thought about it too much, probably, but
Yeah.
no time.
I know your family, and you guys have a very strong background in religion. You went through the pandemic. Now you're going through war. You've got to be documenting this somehow, some way, because it has to teach the future.
I appreciate that, and you also, when you gave me that book years ago, "The Artist's Way" by Julia Cameron, has inspired me a lot, and I've realized that I need to. I mean, one thing I need to be doing, and this is a good reminder, every day is write down my journal of what's happening. Uh, there's some things that I can't report yet because they're not confirmed. Also, knowing that the Russians are listening to everything we say, it's a different mode to be in here as a journalist too. So I need to be keeping that journal, which one day will give the full story of this drama.
Yeah. So as a journalist, this is one of the things that I've talked about on iHeartRadio for a long time, and that is that as a journalist, how do you keep opinion out of it and keep it 100% based on fact?
Well, I think first, my view is first we have to acknowledge our questions because journalists we don't have some special insight that gives us the full answer on everything. So I think the first role of the journalist is to ask questions and to share the sentiments and emotions of the people in a real way, not to disguise those emotions. So that's really what we focused on. And I think if we do, I mean, there's a role there's a role for some opinion if we're honest about it. Like if we talk about our own emotions and for sure. But I think the main thing is we have to label and identify, where we're coming from, what our situation is. So for me right now, I mean, obviously we are reporting, but what's happening, and we're sharing stories that you only can find in Ukrainian and translated into English. But I mean, I'm certainly partial in the fact that I want Ukraine to win. This is a free society where there's free speech, free press, freedom of assembly. In a way, that feels even freer than America has been lately. There's a freedom in people's hearts. And so I have no shame in saying I'm completely in favor of that.
Yeah. One of the things that's shocking to me is that this is the first time I've heard of 2014 being that day of glory, because I always thought that Ukraine became free when the wall came down.
No, yeah, they had a big struggle. I mean, the '90s was very difficult here. It was still a beautiful time of awakening of the culture, but they had many obstacles and a few revolutions. And one reason why I think we don't hear much about 2014, I think Putin never mentions it. He mentions it obliquely. He'll say, something happened in 2014, a regime change. He never wants to give the revolution any credit. I think it's the thing that scares him the most because the people stood in the streets and demanded we will be free, and it worked because they didn't flinch. And if Hong Kong tried to do this and they failed, it's very difficult. What the Ukrainians pulled off, I'd say 2014, the Maidan Revolution is Ukraine's superpower, and it unleashed their language and their culture and their creativity. There are interesting narratives emerging in America. I just saw, and the UK, I just saw Russell Brand talk about it. This was a CIA organized, the 2014 was CIA organized right-wing coup. But if you look, there's a great documentary on Netflix called Winter on Fire that tells the story of that revolution. And I would say every single person I know in this country has been touched and affected by what happened in 2014 and have found they also called the revolution of dignity. And I think that dignity extends to a reawakening of the understanding of dignity for every single person.
The two nuclear power plants, first one, the Chernobyl, and then the one that just recently happened last week. That right there has got to send a shiver through the souls of every person there that what's going to happen now that both of them are in Russian control.
Yeah, I mean, and part of this I think could be Russia's psychological game, and because we need a lot more studies and research. There's differing opinions on how dangerous Chernobyl could actually be now. There's different opinions on it, but certainly it affects the psyche. And Russia has been absolutely reckless, especially with the Zaporizhia, the largest nuclear plant in Europe, by firing very close to the plant. And we've seen the recklessness, the way they've attacked civilians, and now going after the nuclear plants. It is scary. I think we do need some better analysis to see exactly what they could do with it. But certainly it shows their absolute disregard for human life. And we've been hearing rumors for a while, and now the British foreign minister said yesterday that Russia seems to be exploring using chemical warfare around the country, even here in the West. So I think the world needs to really be alert to these possibilities and things like that. It would not be limited to Ukrainian territory, the effect of it, of course.
Well, Joe, I still believe that COVID was chemical warfare. I am convinced that somebody set that thing free.
Well, we could. I mean, that's another thing we can talk about. But I think we need to look at it in a way that I think in America it's difficult to look at that calmly because people get angry. Here in Ukraine, you can have fierce arguments and no one gets mad. I love it. But my brief thing I would just say for people to consider on that is, Beijing and Moscow have been great allies. I think we really got to pay attention to what Beijing is doing now. They're very quiet right now, but we know that they've been gearing up to go after Taiwan. And the analogy between China and Taiwan and Russia and Ukraine, there's so many similarities. And just remember in 2019, a couple of things that were happening. Hong Kong was on the verge of really punching back against Beijing and breaking away. There were almost 1 million people in the streets, on a regular basis, protesting, inspired in many ways by the blueprints of Ukraine's Euromaidan revolution. Wow. They had American flags, British flags, and Ukrainian flags. No one realizes that. And the Trump administration had their trade war against China. Many people warned Trump, don't push China. And then what happened? The pandemic began, and then the world power balance began to change. So yes, I think and many experts had warned for a decade or more about the possibility of chemical warfare. So yes, we need to always consider these things.
Absolutely. I've read your book. I have to believe that the struggles and the really hard times but at Fox really made you the man that you are today. Do you ever reflect on that?
Yeah, I mean, in this moment for sure, because I've been out of I've been working with Ukrainian media since I got here. We have an English language website, Lviv Now, but I've been out of sort of, the big media frenzy since the day I escaped Fox News in a car chase through the Hudson Valley. And I realized that I needed my time in the wilderness. I needed that time at Fox News. I need to draw upon all those experiences and memories to have the strength and the knowledge to do what I'm doing now. And with the amazing team of Ukrainians I have around me in this moment. This is the moment that all that was preparing me for.
Yeah. The website one more time so people can send donations.
It is lvivlab.com, LVIVLAB.com.
We got to continue talking more in the future, sir. I really do believe that you have a story and that you will always bring the facts to this place.
Well, Errol, I always appreciate our conversations, and there's always some. I know I'm going to start my daily journal here, so I got a new mission.
You got to share those journals with me when you come home here to Gatehouse Court. All right.
I look forward to that. We'll have some bourbon and some journals, and I look forward to that day after victory. I
love it, man. Well, you be brilliant today, and thank you so much for your time today, Joe.
Hey, thank you, and good afternoon from Ukraine.